Welcome to Built Through Time, your shortcut to being well-informed. Today, we're taking on a truly monumental subject, the Palace of Versailles. You probably know it as this symbol of opulence and power, and yeah, definitely is that. But we're going to go much further than just the gilded facade. We'll explore its really ambitious origins, introduce the fascinating people who brought it all to life, reveal what it was actually like living inside those walls, which is maybe not what you expect, and look at the profound impact it had on France.
That's right. We're going to look at how this amazing piece of architecture wasn't just built from stone and gold. It was built from, well, vision, immense human effort, and huge societal shifts that it both reflected and arguably caused. It's left this legacy that still resonates,
Yeah.
So yeah, get ready to unpack the real story behind one of the world's most iconic places.
Okay, so to really get Versailles, we have to start at the beginning, right? And it wasn't always this grand palace,
Not at all. It actually started as something much, much simpler.
like a hunting lodge.
Exactly. Commissioned by King Louis XIII back in 1623. Later, it was replaced by a small stone and brick chateau. They called it Le Chétif Chateau. The meager chateau. Pretty humble. Louis XIII loved it because it was secluded, far from the noise of Paris. It was really his private getaway. Apparently, even his wife, Queen Anne, wasn't often invited to stay the night. It was a very sort of male retreat.
Wow, okay. From meager chateau to Versailles. That's quite a jump.
A massive jump. And that jump really happens with his son, Louis XIV.
Right, the Sun King. Did he love the place like his father did?
Not initially, no. He didn't have that strong personal connection. He'd only visited once as a kid, actually, escaping a smallpox outbreak. But what he did have was this incredible eye for potential. He saw something there, this potential for greatness.
And when did he start acting on that potential?
Well, his personal reign really kicked off in 1661, and that's when the huge expansion project began. He saw Versailles as, well, as the beating heart of his reign.
More than just a house then. A symbol.
Absolutely. A stage to show off his power, glorify his whole Sun King divine status, and moving the court there permanently in 1682, that was a masterstroke.
How so?
It was all about control, consolidating power over the nobility. By making Versailles the center of everything, he basically forced the nobles to hang around him constantly, seeking his favor just to stay relevant.
Keeping your friends close and your potential rivals closer, maybe.
You could say that. Yeah, I kept them busy, competing for his attention, living in his orbit.
So to pull off this massive vision, he needed some serious talent. Who are the key players he brought in?
Oh, he assembled a kind of dream team for the era. First, there was Louis Laval. He was already first architect to the king since 1654. He handed the initial big expansion starting in 61, adding those two large white marble wings to the original chateau. He also did the first orangery and the ambassador's staircase, though that was later demolished.
And the gardens? They're just as famous as the palace itself.
That was André Le Nôtre, a genius landscape architect. His family were royal gardeners, so it was in his blood, you could say. Louis XIV actually noticed his work at another chateau, Vaux-le-Vicomte, and basically poached him.
So what did Le Nôtre do at Versailles that was so revolutionary?
He took this huge area, like 800 hectares, and completely reshaped it. He created this amazing dual-axis east-west and north-south with the Grand Canal as the main focus, giving these incredibly long, open views. He didn't just plant gardens, he sculpted the landscape.
Wow. Symmetry and fantasy, I've heard it described as.
That's a good way to put it. Terraces, flower beds, groves, all meticulously planned. And the details. Statues everywhere, yew trees pruned into these astonishing shapes. Versailles really became the center for topiary art.
And Loutre and the king were close.
Remarkably close. Louis actually ennobled him, which was rare for an artist, and genuinely considered him a friend. They apparently had long walks and talks in the gardens.
Amazing. And for the interiors, all that gold and painting.
That would be Charles Le Brun. He became first painter to the king in 1664. His influence was enormous. He oversaw pretty much all the interior design, the paintings, the tapestries, even a lot of the sculptures in the park.
The Hall of Mirrors ceiling, that's his work, right?
Yeah, it's probably his most famous masterpiece, yes. Just breathtaking.
So Laveau starts it, Le Nôtre does the grounds, Le Brun the interiors. Anyone else major?
Yes, after Laveau died, Jules Hardouin-Mansart took over as first architect in 1681, and he really shaped the Versailles we mostly see today.
What did he add?
Oh, huge sections, the enormous south wing, the Aile du Midi, the Grand Petit Écurie, the stables, which were like palaces themselves, housing thousands of horses and staff.
Right.
He also designed the Grand Triana, a sort of smaller palace retreat on the grounds, and finished the Royal Chapel, which took until 1710.
And the Hall of Mirrors itself. Le Brun painted it, but who designed the space?
That was Hardouin-Mansart too. It's fascinating, actually. Laveau had originally designed an open terrace there.
An outdoor terrace.
Yes. But Hardouin-Mansart enclosed it, replacing the terrace with this incredible gallery lined with mirrors facing the windows looking out onto the gardens. It created this amazing light-filled space, perfect for ceremonies and just being seen. That was built between 1678 and 1684.
Incredible vision from all of them.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got the visionaries, the designers, but let's talk about the sheer scale, the logistics and, well, the human cost of building this thing. It was an astronomical.
Colossal is the word. I mean, the palace itself ended up with something like 700 rooms, 67 staircases, over 1,200 fireplaces.
1,200.
1,250, actually, plus over 1,000 service rooms. The whole thing covers more than 700,000 square feet.
That's just staggering. And the gardens.
Over 800 hectares, remember. Nearly 200,000 trees, hundreds of thousands of flowers planted every single year. It was constant work.
And the water. Those fountains needed a lot of water, right?
An unbelievable amount. The water system was an engineering marvel, truly. About 35 kilometers of pipes feeding 221 fountains and over 1,200 water jets.
Where did all that water come from?
Well, that was the audacious part. They actually diverted the Eure River.
They diverted a river.
Yes, through this incredibly complex system of canals, aqueducts, and dams. Just to make the fountains work for the king's entertainment, the ambition is almost hard to fathom.
But all this building, all this landscaping, it needed workers, a lot of workers. What was life like for them?
It was brutal, plain and simple. At its peak, there might have been up to 36,000 workers on site, doing everything from digging foundations to the most delicate interior decoration.
And conditions were bad?
Deplorable, really. Men earned maybe 5 sous a day. That was barely enough for like a small piece of butter, not enough to properly live on.
And dangerous, I imagine. Safety wasn't exactly a priority back then.
Not at all. Workers fell from scaffolding all the time, died from exhaustion working 12-hour days, sometimes longer. Disease was rampant dysentery, malaria from the marshy ground before the drainage. Things got so bad they actually had to build 3 hospitals nearby just to deal with the injured. And the death toll was horrific. Some accounts say 5 or more men died each week.
That's awful.
Oh.
How did Louis XIV react to this? Did he care?
His stance was harsh. Workers who went on strike demanding better pay or conditions were basically ignored. There are even stories of family members who complained to the king after losing a loved one on the project being imprisoned. His absolute will was paramount. That relentless drive is certainly part of why so much got done during his reign, but the human cost was immense.
So the human cost was terrible. What about the financial cost? Can we even calculate that?
It's incredibly difficult. Record keeping wasn't like it is today, and things were measured differently, but people have tried to estimate.
None of the numbers.
Well, one estimate suggests if you tried to rebuild just the structure today, it might cost around $2 billion US.
Okay, that's a lot.
But that's just the basic building. When you factor in everything, the decades of construction, the furnishings, the art, the gardens, the waterworks, the ongoing maintenance, historical estimates adjusted for inflation get truly mind-bending. We're talking possibly in the range of $200 to $300 billion in today's money.
Billion. With a B.
Billion, yes. Some calculations put the total lifetime costs, construction, and upkeep at maybe 2 to 3 billion euros in modern currency. It's unquestionably one of the most expensive royal homes ever built.
That's hard to wrap your head around. Could we even build it today?
Technically, maybe the structure would be easier with modern machines, but the decoration, all that intricate gold leaf, the specific marble, the hundreds of bespoke statues, the sheer artistry.
The craftsmanship?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That level of detailed artistic skill applied on such a massive scale that would still be incredibly costly. And finding enough people with those specific talents, well, that would be a challenge in itself. That artistry is almost priceless.
Okay, so we've got the immense scale, the human cost, the financial burden. Let's pivot to life inside those gilded walls. What was it actually like to live there day to day under the Sun King? You mentioned it wasn't exactly a fairy tale.
Far from it in many ways. Daily life was highly ritualized. That's probably an understatement.
Ritualized how?
Well, think about the king's daily routines. Even waking up and going to bed were public ceremonies.
Public.
Oh, yes. The official awakening and the coucher, the going to bed ceremony. You could have up to 100 people crammed into the royal bedchambers watching these intimate moments.
100 people watching the king get dressed.
Or undressed, yes. And high-ranking nobles would actually compete for the honor of performing tiny tasks, like handing the king his shirt or holding a candle. It was all about being seen, asserting your status, getting that little bit of royal favor. Every single action was a performance.
And Louis was strict about appearances, right? Not just the palace, but the people.
Extremely. Courtiers had to wear specific, often very expensive outfits for different occasions. Men, for instance, had to wear hats during dinner, which must have been awkward with the elaborate clothes of the time.
Supporting French fashion, I suppose.
Definitely. He was very keen on promoting French textile industries. There's even a story, maybe apocryphal, maybe not, that he burned his own son's non-French clothes to make a point.
Wow. Okay, but beneath all this glittering ceremony and fashion, there was a less glamorous side, wasn't there? Something about the smell.
Ah, yes. The infamous stench of Versailles. It's a detail that often shocks people, but yeah, by many accounts, the palace often smelled like feces.
Seriously, why?
Lack of proper plumbing, mainly. For most of the thousands of nobles and servants living or working there just weren't enough bathrooms or latrines. So people used chamber pots.
And where do the contents go?
Often, and just emptied into corridors, courtyards, even fireplaces sometimes. People would relieve themselves in hallways or behind tapestries. It sounds unbelievable, but that seems to have been the reality.
So how did people cope?
Perfume. Lots and lots of perfume. Courtiers would douse themselves in strong scents to try and mask the pervasive odors. It's this incredible contrast, isn't it? The visual splendor and the olfactory reality.
You can see why the French perfume industry took off. It highlights this huge gap between the image of power and the, well, gritty reality.
It really does. It shows how much the outward show, the control, was prioritized over basic comfort, even for the elite.
And you mentioned control. Louis used the court rituals to control the nobility, essentially turning them into servants.
In a way, yes. He transformed the powerful French nobility into a class of servants, constantly vying for his attention and dependent on his favor. And that favor was shown in bizarre ways sometimes. Being asked to perform a seemingly tiny task, brushing the king's hair, holding his candle as he walked, was a sign of status. Even, apparently, being chosen to hand the king his chamber pot was seen as a high honor, a sort of entry-level position in the hierarchy of royal service.
So life was just a constant game of trying to get noticed by the king.
Pretty much. A game of shady politics, as one source put it. Jobs, privileges, pensions, they could be bought, yes. But often they were bestowed directly by the king or queen based on who was currently in favor. It kept everyone on their toes and focused entirely on him.
And why all these rituals and ceremonies? Was it just ego?
Partly ego, perhaps, but mostly strategy. Louis deliberately filled his courtiers' days with these pointless ceremonies, unnecessary rituals, and frivolous entertainment.
To keep them busy.
Exactly. To keep them busy, keep them at Versailles where he could watch them, and prevent them from having the time or opportunity to plot against him back on their own estates. They couldn't leave without his permission.
So they'd spend their days attending parties or literally just watching the king eat.
Yes. The grand couvert was a formal public dinner. The royal family would eat, and a crowd of courtiers and sometimes even the public would just stand and watch for the whole meal. Standing.
That sounds incredibly boring.
It probably was, but it was part of the spectacle, part of the control mechanism.
But despite all this formality inside, you mentioned the grounds were kind of open.
Surprisingly, yes. The vast grounds weren't completely closed off. Local peasants, people from nearby towns, even area drifters could apparently wander in, at least around the edges.
Leading to?
Well, reports suggest they sometimes use the perimeter of the grounds to dump their trash. So while the inside had its unique aroma issues, the outside wasn't always perfectly pristine either.
Huh. Okay. Any other weird quirks about life there?
Oh, plenty. Louis XIV adored dogs, especially Great Pyrenees. His favorites apparently had a huge allowance, maybe $20,000 a year in today's money, and the royal bakers had to make them special treats every day.
Spoiled pups.
Definitely. He also had a royal menagerie built, filled with exotic animals, elephants, flamingos, all sorts. Animals, both pets and strays, apparently roamed pretty freely around the palace and grounds.
Except cats.
Strangely, yes. For all his love of animals, house cats were apparently not welcome inside the palace. No one's quite sure why.
In winter, you mentioned all those fireplaces, but did they actually keep the place warm?
Not really. The palace was huge, drafty, and poorly insulated by modern standards. Winters could be brutal. Those hundreds of fireplaces just couldn't cope with heating the enormous rooms. There's a famous account from 1695 where a visitor noted that even at the king's own dinner table, wine as well as water froze in the glasses.
Freezing inside.
Yeah.
While surrounded by gold. Wow.
Yeah, imagine the discomfort amidst all that supposed luxury.
But hey, at least the parties were good, right?
Oh, the parties were legendary. Absolutely spectacular. Like the delights of the Enchanted Island fete back in 1664.
What is that for?
Get this. It wasn't celebrating the completion of the palace, it was celebrating the start of the major construction. A 6-day extravaganza with races, banquets, fireworks, even specially commissioned plays by Moliere.
A 6-day party just to kick off construction, only at Versailles. So from these opulent parties and strange daily routines to the smell and the freezing cold and underlying it all, that immense human effort, Versailles was truly a place of extremes. And these extremes, this whole project, obviously had a massive, lasting impact, not just on the court, but on France itself. Let's talk about that legacy.
Absolutely. The economic impact, especially on ordinary people, was profound and often devastating.
How so? The construction must have provided jobs, right?
It did, but remember, the wages were terrible. And the sheer cost of the palace, the ongoing burden of state-supported extravagance, put huge pressure on the French government's finances. This forced them to impose new, heavy taxes on the population.
Which led to?
Increased taxation, yes, but also inflation. Prices for basic goods started escalating. It hit traditional artisans and shopkeepers hard, too.
And the price of essentials, like bread.
That's where it really hurt. Sources say the price of bread broke its record every single time. This, combined with the crushing taxes, led to widespread poverty and even famine among the common people. You read descriptions of ordinary folk dressed in miserable clothes, working in terrible conditions, while the court lived in splendor, financed directly by their hardship.
So Versailles, this symbol of French glory, was built on the backs of the poor, essentially.
It's hard to argue otherwise. It was financed through exorbitant taxes and forced labor. It really underscores the nature of Louis XIV's absolute rule and its very real consequences for his subjects.
What happened to Versailles after the Sun King died in 1715? Did it stay the center of power?
Actually, no. The court left Versailles almost immediately after his death and moved back to Paris for a while. For decades, relatively few changes were made to the palace itself. Louis XV and Louis XVI did make some additions and tried some restorations later on, but many felt the palace had lost its former glory and, frankly, wasn't very comfortable compared to newer styles.
And then came the Revolution. Versailles must have been a potent symbol by then.
Hugely potent. It became the symbol of the monarchy's excess and failure, the embodiment of everything the revolutionaries were fighting against.
Wasn't there a famous march on Versailles?
Yes, the Women's March in October 1789. Thousands of Parisian women, furious about the high price of bread, marched all the way out to Versailles. They stormed the palace grounds and ultimately forced Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette to return with them to Paris, where they became virtual prisoners. It was a major turning point.
And the palace itself during the Revolution?
It was looted in 1792. Much of the incredible furniture and art was auctioned off. A lot of it apparently ended up in England.
Did they consider tearing it down?
There were proposals, yes. Some revolutionaries wanted to demolish it entirely as a symbol of the old regime, but it was just so massive, the cost and effort involved were deemed impractical, thankfully.
So it survived. What happened next?
In the 19th century, Napoleon took possession, but he didn't really live there. It stayed pretty empty. Then, King Louis Philippe I had a different idea.
Which was?
He decided to turn it into a museum dedicated to all the glories of France. That's when he created the huge Galerie des Batailles, the Hall of Battles, to celebrate French military victories throughout history.
So a transition from royal residence to national symbol.
Exactly. And the 20th century brought major efforts to preserve it. John D. Rockefeller Jr., the American philanthropist, actually funded a huge amount of restoration work in the 1920s and 30s.
Really? An American?
Yes, his funding was crucial and also spurred the French government to finally commit regular funding for its upkeep. Artists like Matisse and Cocteau also championed its preservation later on. It needed it too, especially after two devastating storms in 1990 and 1999 knocked down thousands of historic trees in the park.
And of course, arguably the most famous event there in the 20th century.
The signing of the Treaty of Versailles, right there in the Hall of Mirrors on June 28, 1919, formally ending World War I in the very room that symbolized the height of a previous European power. The historical echoes are incredible.
And today?
Today, it continues as this amazing, living museum. Millions of people visit every year. There are constant, ongoing preservation efforts trying to balance keeping this incredibly significant historical site authentic while making it accessible to the public. It's a huge challenge.
So when you step back and look at it all, Versailles really is so much more than just a spectacular building, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It's this incredibly complex tapestry, woven from threads of immense ambition, breathtaking artistry, sophisticated social control, but also, undeniably, immense human cost and suffering.
It really forces you to think about the true price of these kinds of grand monumental visions. Not just the financial cost, which was staggering, but the cost in human lives, in the experiences of the people who built it and lived within its shadow.
Exactly. It's a powerful reminder, I think, of how absolute power, chasing glory, can create something awe-inspiring, but also leave behind this incredibly complex, sometimes dark legacy.
Yeah, it's a testament to what humans can achieve. The sheer ingenuity and perseverance is undeniable. But it also serves as a stark reminder of the struggles, the inequality, the things often hidden beneath the glittering surface of ultimate power. If you like and want to hear more of these discussions, please like this video and subscribe to our channel. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode of Built Through Time.